Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unearth with Shelly Hughes podcast. I'm Shelly Hughes. This is Julia Barge, our brand manager. And in this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of business. We talk about our wins, lessons learned, mistakes of growing a passionate, profitable brand. And today, I think we're just going to be really getting to the hearts of all the founders out there.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a founder of a business myself. I have a very ambitious goal to be the founder of many businesses in the future. And Julia here is jumping along, being essentially our second hire.
Yep. So today I really wanted to chat with Shelly about why she started Nole Roots, really like the why behind our business, the how we do everything, and what really went into your thought processes of creating a business that was going to work for you, work for others, work for clients, and really dive into all the nitty gritty details behind your founding story.
Yeah, I know a lot of founders who they had very possibly chaotic childhoods, right?
Mm.
Um, Whether it was they didn't have enough food on the table, or maybe they only had a single parent household. There was a lot of chaos, and I think Dan Martell says this very well: is a lot of entrepreneurs are addicted to chaos in some way or another, and I very much agree with that. However, I my background was honestly very different. Neither of my parents were entrepreneurs. My my family was very welcoming and supportive. Um, they were quite scared when I told them I wanted to start a business, but my background was very healthy, and so I almost feel like I'm not, you know, I I'm not good enough to be an entrepreneur because like I don't have that like chaos and that addiction to chaos. But
I
um,
think it's a good thing.
maybe it's a good
It
thing.
benefits me and
Maybe it's very
everybody else.
healthy. Maybe it's very healthy that I don't
I
have
think it
that.
is.
But
Very mature.
thanks. But from the or as early as I can remember, I wanted to start a business, right? Start something from scratch, build something to something great. And I don't really know where that came from. I didn't know any business owners growing up. My mom and dad, they're the kind of people who worked at Boeing and Verizon for 35 years, and had their pensions and were set for their retirement. And since as early as I can remember, I just knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I and I don't know really why, growing up I would sell friendship bracelets, I would sell lemonade, I would um, you know, I would just I was a big saver, right? Um and so I never knew what business I wanted to start. I went through college. I was a strategic communications and international studies double major. I had this vision of working at this huge agency and probably one day starting a business. Wasn't sure what that was going to look like, but one day starting a business. And left the school, got the job of my dreams at this big agency in Philadelphia, and ended up hating it. For many different reasons. But it kind of gave me a little, whirlwind of a moment, dropped everything, traveled by myself to New Zealand and Australia for a month and a half, 2 months, with just a backpack on my back and a bus ticket, right? And kind of find myself a little bit, figure out who I am. And I came back, got another job, and I just saw all the things that were so bad about agencies. The burnout rate is insane. The focus on um, just awards and you know kind of that ego is so high. It's so competitive, and I just knew that the way agencies worked then it just didn't work. It wasn't sustainable. So I knew that, and as I was still, you know, finishing up my couple jobs, um, I told my boss that she asked me what I wanted to do in 5 years, and I told her I wanted to start a business. And she said, "Okay, what do you want to do in a year later? Okay, what do you want to do in 5 years? Start a business. Year later, what do you want to do in 5 years? Start a business." And I just never knew what that looked like. And I wanted to do something that was really impactful to the world, impactful to our community. So I was thinking, okay, is this a nonprofit? Could this be a product that I build that really helps a certain type of demographic or a certain challenge that our community is facing? And honestly, it got to a point where I needed to start a business quick. I just had this bug, and I said, "Hey, I have this amazing background in marketing, leadership, small business. Well, why don't I just start an agency?" So I, but I didn't just want to start an agency. I wanted to start an agency that helped grow the impact of mission driven brands. That has been my focus from the beginning. If you don't necessarily have to be a nonprofit to be our client, you don't have to be solving this huge humanitarian problem to be our client. But I wanted to use my talents to help businesses that are making the world just a little bit better. And marketing is an amazing growth tool. PR is an amazing method of expansion of your audience and your reach and your authority. And so I started Noli Roots from that. I started it mainly as kind of a fractional CMO. I would come in and support clients because I was a solopreneur of our marketing strategy and their messaging strategy, and just helping them basically as a part-time CMO. A lot of companies can't afford a full-time CMO, so I would come in, help on a part-time basis, and they would love all the strategy that I presented to them, and would say, "Hey, I need your help to execute this." So that's kind of where the agency came in. Is I built out this agency to kind of help execute that
Hmm.
strategy. And I love coming to work every day. I have always had this vision of being able to talk to really inspirational people every single day, and I think um, my hires are kind of fulfilling that, and our clients are fulfilling that as well.
Hmm. What was the first thing that you did when you're like, okay, I'm done with, the corporate life. I want to start this business. What was like one of your first thoughts, or one of the first like tactical things that you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. This is what I did.
Well, if we could take one step back.
Hmm.
So, at my old job, like I said, I told my boss at the time that I wanted to start a business, right? And I knew it was going to happen at some point. So I started a blog. I did some family photography on the side. So I started an LLC because taxes.
Hmm.
Started an LLC just for those little family photography projects, and I started a blog called Noli Roots, all about marketing. And I spoke about marketing and digital marketing and how to think about the entire ecosystem and how to unsilo everything. Um, and my boss at the time did not like that. It was right in the middle of COVID. And I was fired on the spot. And man, the weight that was lifted off of my shoulders, because I don't know when I would have truly started the business.
Hmm.
I had this um I had this blog, I had this idea, I had this vision, but it was just so scary to start. We were also thinking about starting a family, and I was like, "Oh, what is maternity leave going to look like?" And that's a whole other podcast
That
episode
is,
about maternity leave
yeah.
as a entrepreneur. Um, but at the time, I got fired, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I drove home, and I went into that meeting. It's so funny. I was really nervous about that meeting because I had a feeling that, my old boss, she didn't like what I was doing, even though she very much knew what my goals were. Um, and I talked to a good mentor and friend of mine, and he said, "Why don't you show up with a resignation letter?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not ready for that yet. Like, I don't know what I'm going to start. I want to give her plenty of time to, replace me and all this kind of stuff. But to be honest, I don't know. I might have still would have been working at that job if it wasn't for her,
Mm.
getting scared of what I was doing and firing me on the spot. And I drove home that day. I had the biggest smile on my face. I I was sweating profusely because I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
Right? I called my mentor and I told him, and he was just so excited for me. Later that day, I bawled my eyes out because I'm like, what's happening? Right?
Hmm.
Um, and I said, okay, let's do it. I had a few people who have been asking me when I was gonna launch the business. Called them up right away. Got my first two clients within 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Um, and because I kept putting them off and putting them off. And I'm like, hey, I'm not starting this yet. I said, no, it's not happening yet. I'll let you know if you want to talk to my current business, and talk to them about marketing needs. You can, but um, they said no. I'm just gonna wait for you. I said, okay, don't know when that's gonna be, but okay. And called them right away. They said, hey, let's send me over a contract. I DIY'd this crappy contract because I had no idea what I was doing. I was not prepared to have to do this. And I signed my first two clients in the first like probably month and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. Saw my first client within a week or two. And it's been incredible ever since.
Hmm. Okay, so one of the first things you did was you got a sign from the universe being like, hey, now's your time, essentially. And
Yeah,
then it just kind of went from there.
I got my butt kicked a little bit
Yeah.
and, you know, felt like almost literally, um, of saying like, this is what you got to do now.
Hmm.
And I look back on that and I say, would I have done myself such a disservice and just stayed comfortable? You
Hmm.
know, stayed in the job that was comfortable, stayed in the role that I didn't totally love, but was it was very challenging every single day, not in the best way. But it sounded more challenging to start a business. It sounded more challenging to find another job, right?
Hmm.
And something I preach every single day with you guys, and I have to remind myself and remind clients is to always prioritize growth over comfort. And the challenging part with that is a lot of times we feel like we're growing. We feel like we're being productive because we're so busy, right? We, but a lot of times, unfortunately, we confuse busyness for productivity,
Hmm.
right? We think we're being very productive and making our way forward. But let me tell you, especially when you graduate college, 5 years goes by like that. And unless you can be busy all you want, but unless you're so focused on your goals and putting measurable, timely, milestones in place, 5 years is going to go by and you're going to be in the exact same position you were 5 years prior. And so I think that's just what I was. I was very comfortable and every day was very um, challenging, in a lot of different ways, some unhealthy, some healthy, some unhealthy. But it just felt like the challenge of either looking for a new job or starting this business was so much scarier that I decided subconsciously to stay comfortable. And that's what we do as humans. Like our instinct is to find comfort. Our instinct is homeostasis, is to things not changing very much. So it's very easy for us to stay in the same spot. And I'm not saying, leave your job every year, right? But it's how can you grow in that position personally, professionally? How can you grow outside? Are you at a job where you are able to grow personally, right? Outside of the business, outside of
Hmm.
your 9 to 5. Um, that could that could kind of check off that box right there. So I always say prioritize growth over comfort because it is very easy to stay in that homeostasis and look back and say like what the heck have I been doing the past 5 years?
Hmm. Yeah. It's also like stability is so attractive too, I'm sure, especially since you were married and you're thinking about having a family. You're like, do I take this risk and, maybe it'll go really well? Or, do you,
Oh, hey, Irv.
okay. Or do you, yeah, that's a crazy decision to make. So you have so many things you have to factor in. But that also, I guess, worked out for you so well because you're like, oh, I had these two clients that were already ready to sign, and then you're able to just kick off like really, really fast. I'm sure that was kind of give you some stability and like structure to your days moving forward too.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really scary. I launched the business officially August 10th. I left my old job probably sometime in July, and I officially launched the business August 10th of 2020. And that same week, I launched it on a Monday. That Thursday, I got a positive pregnancy test. So my firstborn, who's now 3, he, man, again, a whole other podcast episode we can talk about, but he made it so much scarier. And I was building this business. It was middle of COVID, right? And I was so afraid that I was not going to be able to give my clients the same value because it was just me at the time,
Hmm.
the same value that they got before I had a baby.
Hmm.
And now I've had a second baby since then, and it's just you just figure it out, and people are much more understanding than you think. And now I'm so lucky that I have an amazing group around me that can really help, that really are so much smarter than I am in so many different ways, and I can really trust you guys to deliver an amazing product for our clients so that I feel supported, and I hope that you guys feel supported if you ever had to, go away for a few weeks or whatever that looked like. Um, but yeah, launching a business and getting a positive pregnancy test for your first baby all in the same week, that was that was
Talk about
that was
timely.
that was one to remember.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Um, but yeah, that's why I started the business. I didn't think I wanted to start an agency, but ended up at the time I had a lot of experience in marketing and in agency life in that field, and I thought that I could really use my talents to help grow the impact of mission driven brands. So that's kind of where we are today, and something I strive for every single day.
Yeah, totally. And it's so much fun to talk to the mission driven businesses that are local to the greater Philadelphia area, too. It's really cool to connect with really entrepreneurial people who are super passionate about what they do. I think that's one of my favorite parts of what we do is having so many conversations with so many different types of people and learning that business is there isn't one formula to starting a business. Everybody does it way differently than each other. So it's really cool to hear from people, how their first hires went or what their first week of starting their business really looks like. It's fascinating. And so that, like Shelly said, we love working with people who are just really passionate about what they do because that's what you want to be doing. You want to work
Yeah.
with people who want to be growth over comfort.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julia, thanks for asking me that question. I love kind
Yeah.
of going down memory lane a little bit,
Hmm.
and talking a bit about our founder story. But guys, if you liked this episode, please give it a like, give it a follow, and make sure to check us out at nollyroots.com.
Cool. Bye.